Most people couldn't find Turkmenistan on a map, and that's exactly how its leaders like it. With some of the strictest visa rules in the world, hardly anyone gets in or out. For decades, this country has been building monuments, rewriting history, and running its society behind closed doors. On paper, it's a nation of 6 million. In reality, it's more like a stage set. Gleaming marble, bizarre statues, and a burning pit that never goes out. Honestly, it feels like a country designed by a dictator who played The Sims once and never logged off. Turkmenistan doesn't get the same spotlight as North Korea. It's not constantly in the headlines. It's not a household name. And maybe that's what makes it even more surreal. Because for the few outsiders who have seen behind the curtain, what they found is a country where reality feels stranger than fiction. So today, we're pulling back the curtain to see why Turkmenistan is one of the most secretive, most bizarre, and most fascinating countries on Earth. If Turkmenistan feels like a mystery, that's because it's designed to be one. The country keeps one of the tightest grips on visitors anywhere in the world. Unlike other destinations where a visa is a formality, here it's a test you're almost guaranteed to fail. Independent travel? Forget it. Tourists are required to book guided tours approved by the government, and visas are often denied without explanation. Even journalists struggle to get in, and those who do usually find themselves shadowed every step of the way. The result? A country of 6 million people that, for outsiders, barely exists. In 2019, fewer than 10,000 foreign tourists managed to visit. For comparison, that same year, North Korea, yes, North Korea, saw nearly double that number. Think about that. One of the most talked about closed countries in the world is actually easier to visit than Turkmenistan. And for the few who make it through the red tape, the experience is surreal. Travel agencies advertise it with slogans like the North Korea of Central Asia or the world's least visited country. Not exactly the kind of thing you'd see in a sunny brochure, but it works. Because for curious travelers, the forbidden factor is the appeal. But the restrictions aren't just about keeping tourists out, they're about controlling what the world sees. Photos of empty streets, empty hotels, empty airports? That's not by accident. The government carefully choreographs what visitors are allowed to capture, making sure the image of Turkmenistan is as polished and as hollow as its marble monuments. Honestly, it's the first country I've seen where even the tourism ads sound like dares. And nowhere is that stagecraft more obvious than in the capital itself, a city of gleaming marble, bizarre monuments, and boulevards that feel more like movie sets than streets. Welcome to Ashgabat. Step into Ashgabat, and it feels like stepping into another dimension. The city gleams under the desert sun. Skyscrapers and government buildings clad in white marble, golden domes glinting on the horizon. It's not just a style choice. Ashgabat holds a Guinness World Record for having the highest concentration of white marble buildings anywhere on Earth. On paper, it sounds glamorous. In person, it's eerie. Streets wide enough for parades stretch out in every direction, but they're almost always empty. The boulevards are spotless, the parks immaculate, yet you'll rarely see crowds. Even the city's massive apartment blocks often look deserted, like shells without tenants. A capital built to impress the world, but it often feels like the world forgot to show up. Then come the monuments, colossal statues of horses, fountains erupting from the desert, and of course, the infamous golden statue of Sapar Murat Niyazov, Turkmenistan's first president, known as Turkmenbashi, or Father of the Turkmen. For years, the statue even rotated to face the sun, so his likeness would always glow. Ashgabat isn't designed like a city for people. It's designed like a showroom, a place where grandeur is measured in marble tonnage and absurd monuments. Even the Ferris wheel holds a world record, as the largest indoor Ferris wheel on the planet. It's like the entire city was built to win trivia night. World's biggest this, world's tallest that. but no one's around to ride the Ferris wheel. For visitors, the experience is disorienting. It's beautiful, yes, but beautiful in a way that feels artificial, like walking through a museum where everything is polished and perfect. But behind the glass, nothing is alive. And just when you think you've seen the strangest part of Turkmenistan, you drive into the desert and find a fire that's been burning for half a century. Out in the Karakum Desert, the horizon stretches flat and endless. Then suddenly, the earth opens up, a crater nearly the size of a football field, filled not with water or rock, but with fire. Dozens of flames licking upward, gas roaring beneath the surface, a pit that glows day and night as if the desert itself had been set alight. Locals call it the gates of hell. And when you stand at its edge, it's not hard to see why. This isn't just a campfire in the sand. It's a wound in the earth that's been burning for over 50 years. The story begins in 1971, when Soviet engineers were drilling for natural gas. The ground collapsed, swallowing their rig into a giant sinkhole. Fearing poisonous gas would spread, they set it on fire, expecting the flames to burn out within weeks. Instead, they never stopped. Half a century later, the crater still roars, turning a quiet desert night into something out of mythology. The site has become Turkmenistan's accidental landmark. Tour companies pitch it as a bucket list stop, one of the strangest places you can camp. Imagine sleeping in a tent with the glow of hellfire flickering just meters away. It's the only tourist attraction I know where the official activity is. Stare into the abyss and roast marshmallows. For the government, the crater is an embarrassment, proof of a Soviet blunder they'd rather erase. For travelers, it's magnetic. The fire feels eternal, a reminder of how fragile the ground beneath us really is. And in a country where so much is hidden, so carefully controlled, the gates of hell stand out as something raw, something real, a place that can't be polished with marble or silenced by propaganda. But the fire in the desert isn't the only surreal thing about Turkmenistan. Step back into the cities, and you'll find an even stranger spectacle: the cult of personality built around its leaders. If Ashgabat feels like a marble showroom, that's no accident. The city and the country were built as a monument to one man, Saparmurat Niyazov, Turkmenistan's first president, better known as Turkmenbashi, or Father of the Turkmen. Niyazov ruled from 1991 until his death in 2006, and in that time he turned eccentricity into policy. He filled the capital with golden statues of himself, including one that rotated to face the sun. He renamed the months of the year after members of his family. He banned opera and ballet for being un-Turkmen. Even dogs were banned from the capital because he reportedly disliked their smell. And then there was the Runama, a book he wrote called The Book of the Soul. It became required reading in schools, mandatory for university entrance exams, and even placed aboard satellites so it could orbit space for eternity. When your book is required not just in classrooms, but in outer space, that's not education. That's ego with a rocket booster. When Niyazov died, many thought the bizarre chapter might close. Instead, his successor, Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov, picked up the script and added his own flourishes. He filled the capital with more lavish projects, built statues of himself riding a golden horse, and once performed a DJ set on national TV. He's also known for his obsession with Akhalteke horses, prized in Turkmenistan as symbols of national pride. State media regularly broadcast clips of him singing songs, writing poetry, or showing off feats of strength. The message was clear. The leader isn't just in charge. He's the culture, the athlete, the musician, the horseman, and the hero. Most countries have presidents. Turkmenistan seems to have auditioned for a one-man talent show. This cult of personality didn't just shape Turkmenistan's image, it shaped its reality. From marble monuments to everyday life, everything revolved around reinforcing power, control, and the illusion of perfection. But behind the statues and showmanship lies something less glamorous: the daily lives of Turkmen people, lived under a system designed to keep them invisible to the outside world. Step away from the marble boulevards and golden statues, and Turkmenistan looks very different. Behind the polished facade, daily life is tightly controlled. The internet is heavily censored. Most foreign websites are blocked, from social media platforms to independent news outlets. Phones are monitored, journalists are restricted, even casual conversations can carry risk. In a country where political opposition is nearly non-existent, silence is a survival strategy. This isn't just eccentric leadership anymore. It's a system built to make 6 million people invisible. Travelers who manage to visit often describe a sense of emptiness, not just on the streets of Ashgabat, but in the culture itself. Festivals, arts, even traditions have been muted, reshaped to fit the government's narrative. What little slips through, family gatherings, local crafts, small markets, feels almost underground, as if daily life has been pushed into the shadows. There are shortages too. Despite the gleaming monuments, Turkmenistan has faced frequent bread and fuel crises. Citizens wait in long lines while government reports still insist everything is stable. It's a surreal double image, a country showcasing record-breaking fountains while many people struggle to afford basic necessities. Imagine living in a place with the world's largest indoor Ferris wheel, but bread is rationed. That's Turkmenistan in a nutshell. This disconnect between the showpiece capital and the hidden struggles explains why Turkmenistan remains so mysterious to outsiders. What the world sees is carefully staged. What people live through every day is carefully hidden. And because so much is kept behind closed doors, Turkmenistan has become one of the least understood countries on Earth, overshadowed by its neighbors and reduced to a handful of surreal images. For all its marble cities, burning craters, and golden statues, Turkmenistan barely makes a dent in global awareness. Most people couldn't tell you where it is, let alone what life there looks like. Part of this is by design. The government keeps information locked down, restricting journalists, blocking media, and keeping tourism numbers at a bare minimum. When you shut the doors that tightly, the world eventually stops knocking. But part of it is geography. Turkmenistan sits wedged between bigger, louder neighbors: Iran, Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, countries that dominate headlines with conflict, politics, or culture. Next to them, Turkmenistan vanishes into the map, overshadowed and overlooked. And then there's the way the outside world frames it. For many people, Turkmenistan is just that place with the burning pit. The gates of hell are a powerful image, but they've also become a kind of shorthand, reducing an entire nation to one strange tourist attraction. When a country is defined by a crater, it tells you less about the place and more about how little we're allowed to know. Even its cultural exports are muted. Neighboring Uzbekistan gave the world Samarkand's stunning mosques. Iran has Persian poetry and cinema. Turkmenistan, it rarely enters the conversation. Not because there's no culture to share, but because the government keeps a tight grip on what leaves its borders. For travelers, that makes the country feel like a blank spot. One of the last places on Earth you can't just Google and plan your way through. And for the world, that mystery is both what makes Turkmenistan fascinating and what keeps it forgotten. Most countries want to be famous. Turkmenistan seems perfectly fine being a rumor. And that rumor is often compared to one place in particular, North Korea. But the truth is, while the two countries share similarities, Turkmenistan's strangeness takes on a very different form. Whenever Turkmenistan comes up, there's one comparison people can't resist: North Korea. Both are isolationist, both are ruled by authoritarian leaders who built larger-than-life cults of personality. and both strictly control what the outside world is allowed to see. On the surface, the parallels are clear, but spend even a little time studying Turkmenistan, and the differences come into focus. North Korea is defined by militarism, parades of missiles, soldiers marching in lockstep, a nation always on the brink of war. Turkmenistan, it's defined by marble, monuments, and a kind of almost whimsical eccentricity. One country projects fear, the other projects spectacle. In North Korea, the power play is intimidation. In Turkmenistan, it's presentation. Two different strategies for the same goal: control. That difference in tone is striking. North Korea dominates headlines, inspires documentaries, and fuels constant geopolitical debate. Turkmenistan, on the other hand, drifts quietly in the background, rarely threatening, rarely discussed. And yet, in many ways, its secrecy is just as suffocating. For travelers, the distinction matters. Visiting Pyongyang is about witnessing a heavily militarized show of force. Visiting Ashgabat feels like walking through an empty theme park of marble and gold. One is intimidating, the other is surreal. And when it comes to leaders, both countries elevate theirs to mythic status. But where the Kim dynasty leans on fear, Turkmenistan's rulers lean on spectacle. Rotating golden statues, giant books of wisdom, and absurd Guinness records. It's like North Korea is a horror movie, Turkmenistan more of a dark comedy. In the end, the two countries share the same blueprint: restrict, control, isolate. But the way Turkmenistan executes that blueprint makes it one of the strangest, least understood places on Earth. Less violent on the surface, but no less bizarre. And that strangeness leaves us with one final question. What does a country like Turkmenistan tell us about isolation, secrecy, and the price of being cut off from the world? Turkmenistan isn't the easiest country to explain. It's a place of contradictions. Lavish marble cities, but struggling markets. Surreal monuments, but silenced voices. A fiery crater in the desert that tells more truth than the polished capital ever could. For outsiders, it's tempting to treat it as a curiosity. The North Korea of Central Asia, or that country with the gates of hell. But the reality is heavier. It's 6 million people living in one of the most closed-off societies on Earth, their daily lives hidden behind spectacle and secrecy. Turkmenistan reminds us that isolation isn't just about borders. It's about what happens when a country cuts itself off from the world, and when the world in turn stops paying attention. That's what makes Turkmenistan so fascinating and so haunting. It's a place where reality feels stranger than fiction, and where questions outnumber answers. Maybe that's why it lingers, because in a world mapped down to every cafe and crosswalk, Turkmenistan is still a blank spot, and blank spots make us curious. If you found this journey through one of the world's strangest countries eye-opening, do us a favor, hit that like button and subscribe to Abroadly. It helps us keep uncovering the hidden stories the world doesn't always show you. Places like Turkmenistan remind us that travel isn't only about beaches, food, and bucket lists. Sometimes it's about shining a light on the corners of the map where people are forgotten and asking the questions nobody else is asking. That's what Abroadly is about, looking past the postcards and finding the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. So stick with us, because this world is full of stories, some beautiful, some bizarre, some hidden, so deep you'd never believe they exist. And we're going to keep bringing them to you, one journey at a time. Until then, safe travels, and I'll see you in the next one.